In this video, I'll discuss stacked galleries. Now, it's not uncommon when you have a web page to want to put some image galleries in here, and I've got sort of a demonstration here of what not to do. What we've got here is 6 images side by side, and when I resize the window, you can see those images are responding. We've actually set them at a percentage, so they will resize, but it's not very helpful. What we want to be able to do is something where we can actually have those columns change and shift, and the images move and stack them on top of each other as the screen size changes. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at our code here. Now our code has 2 div containers, and each div container, each called row, has separate divs inside. Each div contains an image. Now notice that I've given a class name of row to the parent div container, and the child div containers I've given a class name of column, and there's a reason for that. So let's go up and take a look at our media queries. I've got one here for the smallest screen size at 700 pixels or less. I've got one for 701 to 1024 pixels, and a media query for anything larger than that. So the first thing I want to do here is go ahead and create a rule for column. Remember, I created the column class, so I'm going to go ahead and create that rule. And here what I'm going to do is just say display block. So what we want to do is just make sure that it displays in block form. And then we're going to go ahead and create a rule for image. So this will be any image that's on the page, and we have 6 of them. So this will just cover any image, and then set a width. And what we want to do here is set a percentage. So I'm going to say 100%. Now, for the next media rule, I'm going to go ahead and inside container, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to create a CSS rule, display table. Oops. It helps to put it in the right location. So what we want to do is display table here. And this is a nifty new feature of CSS3 where you can actually display div containers and treat them as tables. And so we say display table. And then here, remember, I've created rows and columns for our div container. So I'll start with row. And you do this, display table row. Now, what that does is it treats that as a row, as it would tr tag in HTML, and the same thing with column. Display. And here, instead of table row, because this is the TD tag, this would be table cell. And then I'm going to set a rule as well for image. And make the width the same, 100%. Okay, looks pretty good. Now finally what I'm going to do is go to the largest screen size. And again, same thing. I'm going to create a rule for display. We want this to display as block. And that looks pretty good. And then create a rule for column and row. Or just column, actually, I apologize. Just column. We want to set display block on this one. And now we want to float these to the left, because remember, they're going to be side by side, so we can go ahead and float them. And then set our width. Now for this, I'm going to set a width of 16%. It could be anything that you want, but what we want to do is actually use a percentage because the images will resize as we're changing the width of the window. And then finally, I'll create the last image tag, or image rule rather. And here what I want to do is set a max height. So we want to be careful about the image and how it's represented. Is by setting a max height, and I'll go ahead and just say 100 pixels. We're saying this is the maximum height that we want the images to be, and because we used a percentage in the previous rule for column, okay, that'll be fine. Okay, it just means that we want to make sure that we sort of cut it off the pass before those images become too large that they don't display correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and go back here and make sure that's saved. It is. Okay, so here's our page. I'll go ahead and refresh that. Now you can see everything looks great at 1025 or higher. And as I shrink down the window size, you can see what happened. So we reach a certain threshold, and now the images become stacked. That we've actually got them top and bottom, and the reason for that is because we've used the table, the display table and table cell and table row settings in CSS. And as I shrink it down even further, we'll see now that our smallest rule has them stacked on top of each other, and it's actually made them larger because remember we made that 100%, and we didn't set a max height on that, so they're actually nice and big, which would be great if you're looking at them on a cell phone. But again, that's the way you do it, and it's a really simple method where we use a combination of techniques. First, we actually have the column display block, and then the image width, and we just set that at 100% for the smallest screen size. And then here we use display table, table row, and table cell for the medium screen size, and then for the largest screen size, we just treat them as side-by-side images and display them appropriately.